Oh, okay. But the name tags went on this. We just have, so let's switch up the order of the. She wants to sit on the end, but she doesn't want to sit wherever. Sit on the lines. Provide your good.
Killing me here, Swan.
Yes, Bob. And then three, yeah, you're ready to. Rules for council members. Okay. Good evening. We welcome you here at the West Valley City Council meeting. We note that all council members are present. And so with that, then we will start our meeting with our video presentations. This one will be just a little different, as you will see when it's presented. But we will now hear that.
I remember the morning of 9/11. A coworker was coming to my house to meet me, and we were going to be driving to Vernal for a homicide training.
I was in the same position I'm in right now. I was a training captain at the time.
I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps about 3 months prior, and I had enrolled in college.
I just come into my office, was talking to the fire chief, and he said, "Hey, a plane just hit the World Trade Center." Wow, okay.
I remember sitting there, and the professor came in and he said, "Hey, something's going on." He turned on the TV and we started watching it.
I was 26 years old when 9/11 happened, and I was dating a fireman at the time. So he was the one that actually called me and told me that a plane had hit one of the towers.
And I remember seeing pictures of one of the towers on fire, and then heard the report that a plane had crashed into it, and thought, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible." And watching that event unfold, saying how it was a commercial airliner that had crashed into the tower, I thought about what it meant for those guys. It's going to be a long day for those guys back in the fire department back there, the work that they're going to be doing.
Kept watching it, and then all of a sudden, a second plane hit the other tower, and I just remember, the news was showing people running and smoke pouring out, and I really didn't know what to think. And then as they just kept reporting, there was a terrorist attack, and you seen the flames, and at that point in time, I know in my mind I was thinking that this can't be good.
And it was heartbreaking.
I thought about the firefighters walking up those flights of stairs and thinking, my gosh, they're going to be spent before they ever get to fight the fire. And then the first tower fell.
And the second tower fell. It was almost surreal. I guess I thought when they said it was a terrorist attack, I'm thinking, wow, that could never happen here.
My heart just ached.
And if you look back at that time of what those men and women did, there was no thought of their own well-being. They just went there and did whatever they had to do to save those in need.
They started reporting about all the people, the firefighters that were not coming out, and I think everybody was glued to the TV. You couldn't believe what was happening. And as they just kept saying, nobody's coming out, nobody's coming out. And you knew that there was firefighters, citizens that had they were gone.
I needed to do something. I needed to do something. I mean, as a firefighter, that's our nature. We want to help and we want to do something. When I came into work, I approached my boss and I said, what would you think if we did a fundraiser and went around the country and raised money to give to the firefighters' families back in New York? He said, that's a great idea, run with it. And so from that, I kind of had to like, oh crap. Because my thought was we'd take a fire engine around the country and raise money. We went to Appleton, Wisconsin to pick up the fire apparatus, and they had it adorned beautifully with all kinds of labels and logos and stickers. Fallen Fund, Healing the Nation, one city at a time, all those kind of things decorated on that engine. And our first stop was in Chicago. And I think that first day we were kind of disappointed. We only raised about $2,000. And so we were kind of like, well, we've got 18 more stops before we get to New York. And the next day we were in St. Louis. And that's what we do. We'd raise funds during the day, pack everything up, drive until wee hours of the morning. St. Louis was a good day. We made a lot of good contacts and good progress. From St. Louis we went to Kansas City. From Kansas City we went to Denver. From Denver we came back to Salt Lake City. And from Salt Lake City we went to Portland, Oregon, then down the coast in California. We ended up in Los Angeles, in North Hollywood on Halloween. We went from North Hollywood to Las Vegas to Phoenix, Arizona. From Phoenix we ended up going to Oklahoma City to Nashville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Philadelphia, and then from Philadelphia we went into New York. As a group we decided that we would walk to ground zero. The roads were dingy and covered with dust, and it was dark, and it was just a really gloomy aspect. And then as I walked out of that alleyway, which was right next to the station, it opened up right up into ground zero. And it's interesting, I've got some photographs of the handrails, the 2x4 handrails, with handwritten things of family members that had visited there. And it was a sacred experience as we were there. We spent a good amount of time there, and not many words were spoken. I hope that this generation of firefighters coming in can understand the sacrifice that those guys made as they're climbing those towers. I think many of them knew that chances are we're not coming back down.
I think part of what 9/11 did, and what I would hope that our first responders of this generation would take away from that, is that in the moment you run towards the danger, you take care of what needs to be taken care of. And there were so many unsung heroes that day, so many people who didn't want any kind of hero title, and because it's what they do, it's what they were trained to do. And the humbleness of responding and helping is just, it's a part of what we sign up for.
I will say that ever since that day, so it's been 20 years, I've worn this on my wrist. And this is one of the firefighters who died at the World Trade Center. So for 20 years, I don't know what it is, for me, I've never taken this off. And so it's a constant reminder. This one that I have was Father Michael Judd, who was the chaplain for the fire department. And he was listed as Fire Victim 001. So he was the first one.
We appreciate staff putting that together and reminding us there are events that define us as a nation, and that was one of them. So nothing I can add to what they've already spoken. Thank you. We'll move now to the regular part of our meeting. For our minutes of September 7th, our meeting then, a motion.
Move to approve those minutes.
Second.
Properly before us without objection, then the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objection, the minutes are approved unanimously. Next, we have our comment period. We have 3 people who have signed up to speak. And we'll begin with Lindy O'Doyne. Not sure I got that last name correct, but you can correct it.
Hi again, it's Lindy Bodwin.
O'Doyne.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, last month I came to you to request our park be built as promised. Remember, I came and talked about our Newton Farm Park. That Newton Farm Park neighborhood, all of us were all promised that park when we bought the property, and me included. And so I appreciate your quick response to this issue. The city was very prompt in coming to me and calling me and explaining to me the issues. And I really appreciate that. But there was no solution. There was no resolution. We're not happy with what, that they're going to push it down the road still. I was told by the Park and Recreation Administration that the builder and the city had a verbal agreement. So it wasn't in writing, it was verbal. And it was bumped up ahead of schedule to 2020. And so whatever they agreed on and whatever they were doing, it was all a go ahead. It was all approved, go ahead. The developer bought some materials and he was ready to go. Of course, there was a setback because of the COVID-19 for the COVID. And then, so they said that it's still going to take 18 months to 2 years. And the homeowners and me, we're not happy with that. We don't believe that's right. We can't wait 2 more years. I mean, it looks awful. We've got all these nice landscaped yards. I mean, the houses are very pretty. I mean, it's a very, very pretty development. And then we've got this big old lot full of weeds growing, and the weeds are going into our yards. And then there's insects and bugs and all that we have to worry about for 2 more years. I mean, I just don't think it's right. So, we've already waited 2 years. We want you to follow up with your word agreement. I mean, they might say it was a verbal agreement, but a verbal agreement is binding, and so if you make these arrangements and these agreements, you need to stick with it. So what we're asking, and all the neighbors are asking, is you please put it back on the schedule, get it going. The developers already purchased some stuff, materials. It was already on the go. I don't know why, you can't just put it back onto the schedule. So we got some pretty angry Newton Farm neighbors are kind of mad at all of you. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Visak.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In the study meeting, Councilman Bueller brought up that Duluth Trading Company has come to West Valley City. I'm bringing it up again so that West Valley City, the population will know about it. It's not just another store. Matter of fact, they didn't open up another store. They opened up a Western United States distribution center that, when fully operational, will process 10,000 orders a day. Right now, they're between 2,000 and 4,000. It is a huge place. They said the average employee, when they're picking up orders and walking it around, are walking a half a mile. They're doing it all on walking and pulling a cart behind them. It's a big, beautiful warehouse. Kind of hard to find, but it was neat to have another new company or another company come to West Valley City. And they're happy to be here. And it's gonna, everything, if you order it today, the odds are it's coming out of that warehouse. So it was cool seeing them there. My hometown CRC building, I'm gonna bring that up too for the people that live on the Chesterfield and that area. We're guesstimating, nobody got an exact total, 750 people showed up to that. I went to all the CRC ones, and the other three together didn't equal this. There was people coming all the way until 8 o'clock. It was packed. All the different varieties, the different community members came out, and there was different foods being made. And it was a very, very fun event. Now I want to bring up our one I believe is one of our crown jewels, or it should be, our West Valley Family Fitness Center. Cleaning, maintenance of the facility is going down. The excuse I get, and I say an excuse, is staffing. But when you see 2 and 3 people sitting behind the desk and there's trash just right outside the door, why can't somebody make a regular, go out there and pick up trash minimal? There's a area, if you come in by the police substation, potholes. There's 2 big drains that are there, concrete, and there's some deep holes. I've taken pictures of it. If those aren't repaired before winter, what happens with holes? Water ice gets down there, expands, they're gonna be even bigger holes. This is something with our maintenance department. They should be able to go pick up some asphalt, few shovels around each one of them, and this is something that should be able to be fixed. I noticed the other day, the COVID line for testing and shots, they use that same area driving in. Every time you run over one of those big potholes areas, it knocks your alignment out. At least that's what they tell me when I take mine up. Oh, your alignment's out. I said, I just got it done. Well, anytime you go over a big pothole. And so we've got lots of people coming in and out of that area. We have our police cars that come in and out. And so every time they do it, it's more maintenance for the city. This is something that should be able to be fixed. I've brought it up with, I won't bring up with the head of the Family Fitness Center. I brought it up with Park and Recs, and I've even done it on the app. And they tell me, well, it's in the works. It's in the works. It's in the works. It's something that should be fixed. And, we need to keep this as one of our crown jewels in West Valley City. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, Mike Markham.
Mike Markham. You guys tired of hearing from me yet? Just a couple of issues. Sitting in the council meeting, not the council meeting, the study meeting earlier, you were talking about a Holiday Oil gas station expansion. If I was on the board, which I'm not, I would give it a go. If they're offering fair market value for the house, because the property owner is happy with the price, they ought to be able to go. Then there was some talk about the wall. I can't remember what it's code or whatever, that there had to be a masonry wall. Right across the street from here at the Mountain America Credit Union, they put up a white vinyl fence. Why weren't they required to meet code and put up a masonry wall? Everybody has to be treated the same in the city. This lady here made a perfect point of what I've talked about in the past. They've got a weed infested field in the middle of their subdivision that should be a park. Where's code enforcement? If we have code enforcement, which I doubt we do, where's code enforcement taking those weeds out? Heaven forbid we have those. I don't know where the city's going. Morris was kind enough to send me a note and ask me if it was time for another ride around. So I sent him a very nice note back explaining that I didn't think code enforcement existed anymore. A lot of the things that I've talked about time and time again have never been done. The semi truck is still being rebuilt in the neighborhood in their driveway with all their other debris sitting around. It's just, what are we doing? What are we trying to do with the city? Where was everybody trying to take the city? I think people are losing interest in the city. Everybody's moving out of the city. If you don't have to live here as a council person or a mayor, you've moved out of the city. How do we get people to come into the city if everybody that works for the city is moving out of the city? You know, we had mayors here one time, ex-mayors talking about how they'd all packed it up and moved to Draper. Let's work on a positive image for the city. It's like I've said before, we have to work a little bit harder because we say West Valley. You know, I've lived all over this valley, and West Valley has always had an image issue because it says West Valley. I don't know who voted that in, but we got to try harder. We got to take care of things. Mr. Visock just talked about the problems over at the rec center. We spent, I don't know how much money to putting in fences and sidewalks and walls between 3500 South and 4100 South. Probably 6 weeks ago, maybe better, I asked if we had an arborist on staff with the city to go look at some of those trees. Some of the trees aren't doing very well. Some of the trees have looked like shrubs because they've got all the branches are coming up from the bottom. One's been hit by a car and broke off, but it's coming back, but it looks like a shrub. Why do we spend the money to make things like that nice if we're not going to take care of it? Maybe I should call and turn in the city for that, because there's weeds 6 inches tall in some of those boxes where the nice trees have been put. Of course, I guess if we can't take care of our own properties, we can't mandate other people to take care of their property. You know, and to get back to the water issue, I've had a lady up here twice talking about water. I've listened and listened and listened, and I have never heard the governor or anybody say, stop watering. I think a lot of people are just using that as an excuse. But why not? We don't have code enforcement anymore. We don't have parking anymore. What do we pay these people to do? Do they not have a job description? You know, they should be getting out every 30 days. Their supervisor, Lane, should cruise everybody's district every quarter to see what they're doing, what they're not doing, seeing if they're earning their money. There's no job description, I guess. You know, like I say, we're West Valley. We have to try harder. Now the legislature took all of our power away to build nice houses. So what do we have? One of the new people running for election is a builder developer, and they're the ones that ruined West Valley.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here today to speak? Seeing none, then we'll close our public comment period. Our Assistant City Manager, any comments?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Council members?
Yes, I have one. Thank you, Mayor. I listening to Lindy and Tim Visock and also Mike. I think they're making great points. I would like to see that city have to tackle that matter regarding the park. Is a nice development area, and it cannot put a piece of property there or land there and without looking at or taking care of that. And I think it's not right. And Mike, he's brought up a very good point too. It's about American Credit Union. Why people they have a masonry wall, and that one have a vinyl fence wall. It's very interesting. Why? Just please tell me why. We have to treat people the same. Because they have the bank, and we treat them different than the citizen here in West Valley City. It does not work that way. No, zero. I want to take a look at that one again. And please, next time I want to see that 2 items on the communication. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Quick comment, man. I just wanted to say that a lot of times folks come up and apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm bringing this up, or I bet you've heard this before. Or are you tired of hearing from me yet? And at least for me, the answer is no, because for every negative thing that I hear or every email I get with a complaint or something, request for improvement, I hear at least 4 or 5 times that in the opposite direction as well. So all comments by all residents with all opinions are always welcome. That's what this job entails. So I'm glad that you folks come. It's good to see you, that you come out. We wish always that more people would. And some people can't show up in person, but they email or they call or they text or they hit us up on Facebook. And I mean, our city is growing. People are moving here. We don't have enough houses to house them here. That's the actual fact that the census data tells us. And our realtors and folks familiar with the housing market will tell us that here as well. And so, yes, are there things to improve? Always. Let's make this as best a place as we can, but we shouldn't be afraid to hear or to engage folks who have differing opinions or who bring those quote unquote negative issues to us, because that obviously elevates the issues that we need to advance. So thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then there's been a request to have 2 items on our potential future agenda items, not communications, but potential future agenda items, if we follow our tradition, to consider having a communication item. And if the council is okay, we'll ask our city recorder to add those 2 items. I will make 1 or 2 brief comments. One, oftentimes something is brought before us and there's more information about it that we haven't received yet. For example, now I'll probably make someone in this audience mad at me, but I have said multiple times, stop building parks. You say, why? Because we aren't maintaining them. We don't have enough money to hire someone to maintain them. Now, they keep coming back with that request each year in our budget, but doesn't seem to get funded. Many issues can be attributed to finances, to budget. So, but we'll talk about that next week. And on the parks, let's bring the priority list that has already been prepared of the parks that are still waiting to be built, just so we can review that again and remind us if that's okay. And then the same on the other, I think it was on the walls. If we could just maybe email out the part of the code where we talk about walls. As I recall, there was more than one option, but we'll see. Okay, so then we can decide when we meet there if we pursue it beyond that.
Yep,
Yes.
that's great. We'll have it all prepared for you. Thank you.
Okay. Fortunately, we're not asking too much, so those are things I've seen before. I've seen it before, so it's already there. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing your comments. With that, we will continue on our agenda. We have next a public hearing. This public hearing is noted by application Z-5-2021, filed by Brent Butler at property at 3532 South, 5450 West, requesting a zone change and a development agreement. After we have our hearing and that, we'll consider ordinance 21-55 and resolution 21-164 that pertain to this to see if it goes forward. The project is to, there's a piece of property was built in there was a home built in 1941. They want to subdivide this into 2 lots. And they would keep the existing home, build a new home on the north lot. And the only issue was that the 2 lots did not have sufficient width, the lot width. And so there was a development agreement entered into to deal with that. The existing zoning would allow a twin home to be built if the current home was demolished. They didn't want to do that. So they entered into an agreement. This is common, that if they request an exception, we put some additional requirements on if the requested exceptions are reasonable. So this is the proposal that is before us. With that, then, council want to add any comments to that? Okay, then I will open the public hearing portion. Is there anyone here to speak to this? Don't usually get a lot. Was there anyone online?
No, sir.
And I forgot we didn't have anyone online for the public comment. Okay. Then with that, then seeing no one to make public comment, then we will close the public comment portion. We will bring it back to the council for further discussion or motions as desired.
I would move for approval of ordinance 21-55.
Second.
It's properly before us. Any further comments? I guess there are none. And just a reminder, if we don't discuss this a lot, it's the second time it's come before the council. We studied it last week in our study meeting, as we studied earlier before this meeting, the ones for next week. So with that, then, we will go to our city recorder for the roll call vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Next,
Move for approval of resolution 21-164.
Second.
properly before us. Any further comments? Fairly routine items to our city recorder then.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next we have a resolution. This is not a public hearing, it's just a resolution 21-165. This is to approve an agreement between our city and the Utah Department of Health concerning the awarding of a grant for emergency medical services. This is actually a grant from the Department of Health, and we need to see if we approve our accepting that. It can be used for various things, for emergency medical services, education, training, etc. And we're happy to accept those funds generally, but that's the introduction to it, pretty straightforward. So to the council.
Move for approval of resolution 21-165.
Second.
Properly before us, hearing no further comments, to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Resolution 21-166. This is to modify or add an addendum to a lease agreement between the city and the Utah Department of Transportation. Originally, we entered into this agreement with them to be able to go on the property and do some work. And we're working on 2700 West for some street improvements. And that had all been worked out. And rather than getting easements, they said just lease the property and take care of it. But they decided that they would pay for the sidewalk and gutter, other improvements along there, and that they would treat that as the funding to go towards that. So that's certainly in our interest to do that. With that introduction then to the council.
I move forward the resolution for approval 21-166.
Second.
Properly before us, hearing no further comments to our city recorder.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Next, we have new business, application SMI-3 2021, filed by Fabricio Laboriel. I got closer the second time. Final plat approval for the cottages on Mary Lane at 3420 South Mary Lane, which is 5275 West. They're creating 5 lots on 1.23 acres. And it's zoned R18, but a number of the lots are larger than that. And there is, because of the size and shape of the lot, they're requesting or proposing a flag lot. And it's where there's, you have to make a connection back to it. It's back behind another lot, doesn't have a lot of frontage. So let's see. Looks like that's probably all the pertinent information. The staff encouraged, I think was the term, that they don't remove all the trees where possible to retain some of those. So, and that's a good thing. For me, I would have put it in the development agreement, but anyway. So that's the introduction to it. I like trees. To the council.
I move for approval of application SMI 3-2021.
Second.
Properly before us. No further comments to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now, and see, I'm going to remember something I usually forget. This will conclude our regular city council meeting, but the council will set as a board for another short meeting right following this one. So we don't have a closed session here, so we've completed our agenda for our regular city council meeting. And so a motion to adjourn this meeting, and then the next meeting will immediately take off. And I don't chair that one. So
Motion to adjourn.
without objection, then we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the redevelopment agency special meeting for September 14th, 2021. Note that we've had an opening ceremony and roll call and all members are present. We have minutes from August 17th, 2021. Do we have any discussion or a motion on the minutes?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Those pass. We have resolution 21-09. Ms. Cottle, would you like to explain that?
Sure. This is actually a really interesting application before you tonight. It's a beneficial item for the redevelopment agency and also for the city. It involves 3 pieces of property really, but 2 that are right here in city center. One is owned by the Aspen Village apartment complex right now, and one is owned by the city, by the RDA. And the properties, one sits right in the Aspen Village property, and one is basically along the right of way along Lehman Avenue. And the area where we've started to improve up the street with regards to the city center project. And so there was a home that sat on the property in the Aspen Village apartment area. And that home recently, well, it actually hasn't been recent now, was actually caught fire and burned and needed to be demolished. And so that property, while originally it was used as a rental unit and again owned by the city, it sits vacant and makes more sense to be used by that development. So as we discussed that with the property owners, they were interested in a property swap. So there's no funds that are changing hands here, just a swap of the property that is more useful to them in their footprint and property that's more useful to us in our footprint. And that is the application before you. It's a real estate purchase trade, a real estate property trade agreement. I can take any questions.
Do we have any questions?
I think it's a good trade and I support it. So gonna do the for approval 21-01. I mean 09.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'll turn the time over to Ms. Kamic for a roll call vote.
Mr. Fitzsimonu,
Aye.
Mr. Bueller,
Aye.
Mr. Hune,
Aye.
Mr. Bigelow,
Aye.
Mr. Nordfelt,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Lang.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. With no other business on our agenda, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. And do we have any opposition? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.